Right, I can see you, Rose. So can you see that now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for inviting me back to the group. I have been before. So I've got colleagues, Anne Burgess and Amanda Ormershaw with me today, and I'm going to hand over to them later in the presentation. Just to say, they sent me 4 slides for this presentation, and in translation, I managed to wreck 2 out of their 50% of their slides. So I've rapidly fixed them, but it's just envy because as you'll see, their slides are far more fancy than mine. So I've been before. I'm leading the non-clinical workforce programme, and just by way of an introduction, just in case people are new to this and haven't seen it, this is the kind of slide I'm using wherever I go to highlight the importance of the work and why it's a priority. I'm preaching to the converted. You all know how much you're valued by people in the system and how important it is that we do something about this, giving you more equity and more kind of visibility in the platform of being a profession in your own right that deserves the attention and the career development. So I don't need to preach that to you, but this is the kind of starting slide that I use to say to people why it's important. So Nikesh Vallabh, who's the GM Clinical Workforce Lead, is now SRO for this programme, which is great because it gives us a good voice in the right arenas. And in terms of governance, we're now feeding into the new to primary care group. So how we've been running the programme, as some of you will be aware, is we have a steering group. Because that's now really quite well formed, we've dropped the frequency of that meeting to quarterly because it's functioning really well, and we've got task and finish groups that are working beneath it, which I'm going to go through with you today and give you some progress updates. So the infrastructure behind it is well set up now, got fantastic engagement, everybody's pulling in the same direction, and everybody has a passion in this group about making a difference for this workforce. We have high engagement with practice managers as well. Very keen to keep coming to this practice managers forum as a main route of keeping you updated, however, because I'm aware that we're not going to reach everybody otherwise. But what we have done, and I've been quite committed to, is making sure that where we have task and finish group leads that are working on your pathways in your career development, that they are led by practice managers that are working within your community. And you'll see that today when we get to task and finish group 3. So some of my colleagues are here today, and my workforce lead colleagues are supporting as well. So very grateful for that support, and they're getting involved with the task and finish groups and supporting your practice managers to be the people that champion the work and come up with the solutions rather than you feeling like a workforce that have been done to. So that's the aim there. So this all started with some scoping work and a driver diagram. Many of you may have seen this before. The bits in red were things that at the outset of the programme, there was already some work going on in the system. It's a huge piece of work. What I'm starting to see, so I've been on the national delivery group around this morning. There's a national delivery group for practice managers and PCM business managers. And it's quite interesting because today they've had the light bulb of maybe it needs to be wider than just practice managers, which from the start, we've been looking at the whole pathway, which is really good. So if you look about the top 2 drivers, I'm hoping that by doing something about career progression and the culture and values, we might start to see some impact on business models, things like terms and conditions and pay, some of the things that are in the more difficult to influence box because you're all engaged with, employed by private providers. Just as an anecdote, this morning there was a conference recently, and I can't remember the name of the conference, but they were talking about some practice manager awards, and they mentioned one award that had been a practice manager who had come into post new, and within 12 months of coming into post had managed to persuade all of the partners in their practice to put everybody on Agenda for Change terms and conditions, which I thought was quite a landmark nugget of information. And I think the tide is turning, and the more we can engage with practice managers and get you on board with helping to shape this, the stronger the voice becomes. So that's really, really positive. So we've started with the top driver, career progression, because if you don't have a framework or a standard pathway that you can work towards, it's going to make getting improvement across a patch very, very difficult. So these were the kind of milestones we set out to do, and this has been delivered through 2 task and finish groups. The first is focused around the career pathway and building a pathway, some generic job descriptions, some generic roles. It doesn't mean that everybody in Greater Manchester has to describe all of their roles and all of their job descriptions in this particular way. It's just a framework that people will be able to use to help get some standardisation across the system. The skills and competencies have been mapped to each of those levels, and then the second task and finish group has been working around looking at all the massive amount of training and development opportunities, packages, courses, links to DWP, all sorts of things. How does that all look, and what's available? So the last thing that has been done is looking at the pipelining as well, because if we can't attract the right people into these careers, then you're never going to get people staying. And so if we can get these skills and competencies and the training right, you're more likely to be able to feed in through the pipeline and retain some of these staff, because I understand there is a pattern of turnover becoming higher in some of the frontline roles that are out there. So the things with the ticks are all the things we have done. We're kind of working on 3 at the minute, which is basically adding together the pathway and the training, seeing if there's any gaps, and then we will, if there are gaps, we'll come up with an action plan. I don't think there will be, because I think if anything, there's that much out there will be a solution to fill each of the skill sets and the competencies that we've identified, along with all of the roles. So that's where that bit's up to. The other thing we've been doing is doing a lot of horizon scanning, and the people we've got on the steering group are from across the system. So for example, we've got GM Primary Care Excellence, haven't we, that are running this meeting. So they're leading a pilot around the IGPM accreditation framework. I'm not sure if that's probably been to this group, I'm guessing, and you'll probably know about that. So as well as providing structured support for and funding some of those places, they sit on the steering group, colleagues on this call, and what they're doing is they're feeding learning from that pilot into what's required in terms of competencies and the training pathway work. So I really feel that for the first time ever, we're starting to knit all of this together and come up with a plausible whole that's going to make sense to the system and will give you a greater voice with wider primary care and with more widely within the system. I don't know if anybody's seen as well, so there's a really good, there's been some work done around trauma-informed response and some podcasts, and the first of those podcasts is now out. I actually listened to it earlier in the week, and you can find it on the Provider Board website, where all the health and wellbeing stuff has moved to, and it's Norma Howell or Howes, I can't remember her surname, and it's the first in a series of podcasts around helping to understand where people might be coming from in terms of when they've experienced trauma or abuse, or you're experiencing abuse from people that are perhaps contacting your services. we've got a logic model, and we're starting to look at how we can build evaluation into some of the programmes, and I'll talk a bit more about that shortly. So we're trying to make sure that it's inclusive and it grows, and where the programme's not directly working on something, how do we connect it? So this will then lead us into phase 2. So in the next phase, we're going to be the work we've done on the roles and the competencies. We're going to be creating quite an ambitious, as Rowan, who's the person that I'm working with me says, it's quite an ambitious target here. It's going to be quite a complex piece of work for him, but he's really quite excited by it. So we're going to transfer this onto the GM passport. So we're looking to develop a GM non-clinical workforce passport. And he's hoping to have all of the additional documents that support this, like the job descriptions and frameworks behind it. So that piece of work is literally just about to kick off. We've also, from the scoping we've done around the pipeline in, with some funding from Health Education England, we've had expressions of interest out, and we're now going to be starting this month a pilot. We're just scoping out the content of that and the milestones about pre-employment for general practice. The plan is to pilot some pre-employment kind of training pod practice hubs. So people will get, if you think about the competencies for those introductory roles at the kind of far end of the entry level of the pathway, we're going to be training people to that skills and competency standard on the pathway, but doing it in a uniform, standardised way, and look to match those people into vacancies in the system, and then perhaps set, I don't know how it'll look exactly, but we're scoping that out. But it's around us making sure that the people that are coming to you and the vacancies you have actually had some consistent training and skills before they get to you, that you can then build on. And we're working with HMR Primary Care Academy that will be leading that pilot, and they were successful in with that bid. And then the third piece of work that we are starting is some of that culture and value stuff in that second driver. We want to really start to look at some of the mentorship, appraisal, support, practice manager development, so the leaders of our primary care system. I'm not going to say anything more at this point because I don't want to steal the thunder of my colleagues and their beautiful slides. So I'm going to hand over to this point to Amanda and Anne, and if you just give me a nudge, Amanda and Anne, when you want me to move the slides on.
Thanks, Sati. That'd be great if you could move that on. So I'm Amanda, I'm the practice manager at Longshoot Health Centre. I work quite closely with Anne as my lead role is practice manager retention. So I think on the back of all of the Wigan appraisal and peer-to-peer support group work, we were asked to lead up a task and finish group, focusing on practice manager development. I think as the slide says, it's all about, for me, not having this done to us, but create it for ourselves. Look at our own development needs and what our pathway should look like. But before I ask for your help, I've just got a few questions so that we can get a sense around this room today. Rose, could you possibly help with the poll, and Sati, could you move on?
You want me to stop sharing so you can do the poll?
Yes, please, Sati.
Yeah, I was going to say I can do it in the background.
Oh, can you? Okay.
Yeah, I can launch.
I think what would be really nice is if we can just see the answers floating on screen before us. So we're going to run through some questions. What would be really great is if you could just type in the first thing that pops into your head. So first of all, today, honestly, how are you?
I'm just going to stop sharing in case I'm interfering with it.
Hopefully, there we go. Can everyone see that word cloud?
Yes, thank you, Rose.
Great, no worries.
Now, myself and Anne have got our own reasons for being so heavily involved in this project, and we will share the word clouds and our reasonings behind this with you afterwards. But straight away, That gives us a really good feeling that we're on the right track. So secondly, what are you really good at? Thank you. Again, some really interesting responses popping up on screen that again very much map over to why we're doing what we're doing. Thank you very much for that. And on balance, what are you not very good at? Again, that's really helpful and very much ties in with why we're linking this so much to the current challenges and the retention of ourselves as practice managers. I'm going to carry on because I don't want to run out of time, but thank you so much for all of those responses. We'll make sure that we read each and every one, of course, after the meeting in thorough detail. So one more question, sorry, two more. What was the least enjoyable task that you undertook last week? Again, amazing responses, and I think, Anne, it's fair to say we're on the right tracks with our initial plans. And finally, if we had a magic wand today and could give you any skill, what would that skill be? Fantastic. Thank you so much. And yes, I'd quite like the lottery numbers as well. That made me smile. I'm going to now move on to Anne, and Anne will share some of our reasons behind this work and why it means so much to us. And we are here for a reason, and the reason is to ask for your help. So I'll leave the rest to Anne. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. I'm so sorry, but for some reason I couldn't see any of the results of that then. So I think I'm going in a little bit blind to this, but from your reaction, Amanda, I can tell they were probably replicating what we're already aware of. So this slide that I've got in front of you, in the essence of not duplicating work and asking people to do things more than once, we have pinched from Dominic Anderson's presentation on that he's done some work around health and well-being with our practice managers and practices, and this is the results of what the question that he's asked of people in terms of how it's feeling. And I think from what Amanda's saying, this probably represents some of that feeling that you can sort of resonate with yourselves. We know it's a stressful place to work. We know that the work can be relentless, and I guess what we're trying to do is figure out how can we make that feel a little bit better, and how can we make that a little bit easier for people with the things that we can sort of control and change and influence. We are listening to people and want to listen to people more. So the whole point of us doing this is to represent practice managers and involve practice managers in every step along the way of us doing this piece of work. Can we just go on to the next one? Whoever's got the slides, please. I think I'm doing me Chris Whitty. Because we didn't want to do bullet points and we don't want to define the projects at the moment too far, because Amanda and I were quite clear around this, that we didn't want to preempt or put things in place that we thought was needed. What we want to do is sort of go on a journey. So the initial point of it is for us to start with looking at what is already out there, what is that's available to practice managers now, for development, for peer support, for enabling people to stay in the job, to make it easier for people to stay in the job, and basically turn up to work every day and keep working the way you are. This slide, sort of the words on the slide, are the essence of what we're trying to achieve. So it's reflecting that, as opposed to having a destination where we're trying to be, where we're going to create something at this point. What we really want to do is not start from scratch. We know there's so much out there already. We know there's loads of good things happening. What we want to do is start to scope that out and then identify the gaps and sort of understand what works, what makes the difference to people, and what do we want to invest in further in the future for this. So at the moment we don't have this finalized, polished products that we're going to, pull together and give to you. We want to make sure there's something that really is going to make the difference for the future. Next slide, please. Okay, so I guess what we're really asking for is a little bit of help around it. We have got a task and finish group formed, as we've mentioned, or forming, I should say, as we've mentioned. At the moment, there are around 5 practice managers involved in that, and a workforce lead and GP excellence. We would welcome more people coming on board and being involved in that work stream if people want to be involved a little bit more hands-on. We also want to ask people's opinions. So some of the questions we've put in today are really going to help inform what we want to move to next. And we're going to use that as part of the groundwork that we're going to do initially. We'd really like to bring things back to you. So when we have got something that we want to sense check, ask opinions, say, are we on the right track? We'd really like to bring that to you. And we'd also like to know what works. So if there are things that are really, really working somewhere, can you tell us about it? Because actually that's something that we need to be aware of and we'd love to kind of find out a little bit more of. So we will be doing some scoping initially, so that'll be things around development, around peer support, around mentorship and coaching, some formal frameworks, some informal groups, and we'll be going out to a variety of stakeholders to start that scoping work. But again, we won't know about everything, and it's sometimes word of mouth that works best. So if you know of something, either just pop it in the chat and we'll pick it up, or obviously contact us. I've just put we've got a project officer that supports Amanda and I on the work we do in Wigan, so I've popped Liz's email just on the slides. She'll just kind of collate things for us initially, then we know if we're going to be inundated by stuff, we've got someone who can receive the emails. And obviously you'll have Amanda and I, our contact details from this as well, in case you want to ask us any questions. So that's it for kind of our formal presentation. Amanda, I don't know if you want to say anything else at all at this point.
No, I think we've covered everything. And I don't know if you've got anything to add, because you've obviously attended our very first initial meeting and we've gone off on individually gone off our tasks now. So Anne, have you got anything you wish to add?
Just no surprises in what was coming up from the poll, sadly, was there? And it's just we've absolutely got an opportunity, if we all work together, to try and influence this and try and turn it around. We can't keep looking at these polls month on month, even year on year now, and people feeling that the way they are about coming to work. It's just really, really sad. There's some great opportunities going on. Please get involved with the group. As Amanda and Anne said, we've only just started, so if you want to join the group, you've missed absolutely nothing. We've just done some initial scoping, and for us it's it's really about hearing how everybody out there is feeling and how we can, you're the people that are doing the jobs. How can we help you? How can we best support you? And let's start to have an impact on what we're looking at here. It's really powerful stuff. Unfortunately, we're hearing it across the whole of the NHS, aren't we? and you know we're experiencing very, very difficult times again. But you know, let's pull together and you know see if we can start to make a difference, because we've got some really great people working on this project, and I think it is quite unique nationally, that we're actually doing this. I know SATI sits on the national group, and I think we're definitely ahead of the game on this, so let's stay that way. So we have made up a little bit of time, to be fair. We've gone over time on this presentation, but unfortunately the next people that were due to present are unable to attend today. So I don't know if anybody's got any questions or you know, or observations, questions that they'd like to kind of put back to SATI, Anne and Amanda. So we've got Michelle Carmichael. Hi, Michelle.
Hiya. Picking up on one of the words you've just said, and observations. So I've worked in primary care for 22 years. Started off as a receptionist in general practice, went to, for those of you that are old enough, and I'm going to show my age, PCG to PCT to CCG, then back to general practice. And you know, when you talk about it sort of across the system in the NHS, so when we look at our different roles and who we're employed by, if we were having this conversation in a commissioning group or in a trust, we'd go to the employer to try and help said discipline group. Whereas with GPs, it's slightly different, isn't it? Because we're independent contractors. So we always try and engage with the PM, which is great because we should be there to try and influence and support. But I suppose it depends on what practice you work at. So I know I've got really good partners. But I know that I still struggle because I'm one of them that are feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, stressed. Because although I've got 5 partners, I've got 5 difference of opinions. You know, I've got another 8 salary GPs on top of that, so the ask is huge. So for me to take back doesn't always necessarily mean that I can get involved in change, because it's sometimes down to the employer. So yes, we're exactly right in what we're doing. We're engaging with the PM, but no one engages with the people who employ us. And sometimes that's where the change needs to take place. It's the mindset of the employment. Because if, as I said, if we were having this, so if I was in back to the PCT days and in the primary care group that I sat on, we'd be taking that back to our senior management to say, look, you know, the staff group are feeling A, B and C. What can we do to support this, implement change, look at their roles, job descriptions. Sometimes depends, as I said, depending on where you sit and how your job is viewed in primary care, it's not that easy. So for me, yes, I've got great support, but maybe a quarter or a half of the PM sitting on this group or any other group won't have that. So even though you will try your best to implement change and support the PMs, which is really needed, that may still stop because they've not got the support of the partners. And some partners don't even, if I'm being totally honest, for the surgeries I've worked in, troubleshooted and supported, don't even understand what a PM does, even though they're running the business. So if they don't know that from the ground, how can the PM then influence any change that's needed within the role? Does that make sense?
It really does, Michelle. Yeah, and I'll say that
sense.
From Wigan and our point of view, that's why we started our initial investment in managers with peer-to-peer appraisals, for exactly those reasons that you describe, to get value back into that model, somebody who really understands your task list that day. So it absolutely resonates. I do think we've got Nikesh, as SATI said, who does attend those, right? And again, it's peer-to-peer. SATI, do you want to cover a little bit about how the steering group covers our clinical colleagues?
Yeah. Is it all right if I just come in before you, Margaret? Is that okay? Just
of course.
Yeah, so what I was going to say was that there is growing system interest in this work as an exemplar of how it should be done. So I've had approaches from all sorts of boards who want to know what we're doing and how they can support it. Now, this ranges from So I'm like going on a little road show this month. So I'm the most popular attendee on many system boards this month. And I won't be wearing 2 jumpers and looking like I'm freezing, hopefully, but like I am with you guys, but I know you won't mind. So on Tuesday, I've come here today. Tuesday next week, I'm going to Primary Care System Board. So that's what used to be that bi-weekly primary care cell, but they're now turning into a system board. So it's one of their first meetings as a system board. I've been asked to go to that. I'm then going to, I'm just looking down my list, I am going to Health Education England Transformation. I can't remember what it's called. It's Transformation Board, and it has wider system partners from across GM. So Michelle Featherstone herself, who is very senior in Health Education England, has had a one-to-one conversation with me about how they support this work, not just, as you're saying, what we really want to do is engage with you to build and shape it. But we've got the ear of people at a very, very senior level who are saying this work is crucial. It's an example of good practice and how it should be done. How can the wider high up system, the bits that need to listen, have some influence on behalf of these practice managers? So that's the transformation. I think it's called the Transformation Alliance. I'm going to that in November. I've got a slot not till January at GP Provider Board, which I gather is quite difficult to get on. So
Yes.
quite proud of myself with that. I'm actually not bothered that that's in January, because I think by the time I go in January, we'll be further on with the pipeline pilot, with the training pod idea, and we'll be further on with the GM passport. So what I'm hoping to do is, once we've developed that, I've already spoken to Rowan about bringing it here to this meeting. If you want to feedback, do you want to see the job descriptions, the framework? Do you want me to start showing them to you as a group? You tell me. I want you need to lead this. I don't see myself as being somebody who's kind of, I just coordinate it and put it together, but I really want this to be about you and how you want it to look, so that we come out with something that's meaningful and sustainable at the end. But just to reassure you, people are listening. And also I know that IGPM are doing an awful lot of work linking in with the BMA, so there's wider comms going on at a system level. So just to give you that reassurance that this isn't a tiny grain of something that's not going to go anywhere. Absolutely will go somewhere. The right people in the system want to know about it and they want to support it. So please, this really is, as Anne said, it's your opportunity. You've got people who have got the capacity to program manage it, project manage it, lead some of the groups. We just need you to shape how you want it to look. We'll make it happen. We just need to know from you what matters and what's important. How do you want it to look? We'll do it. So you just help us get there. Margaret, did you want to come in?
So that's it. I think I've crashed this meeting. I've had the invite from a PCM manager, but Jolene, the PM in the building where I work, will take it over in a minute. But I think Michelle has hit that problem smack on the head. Every GP practice employing staff, whether it be single-handed, multi GPs, whatever, they have their own rules and regulations for their staff. And that is going to be difficult to get around with. Anne will tell you, yesterday at our local PCM manager meeting, there's upset being caused locally because the ARS roles are getting really good working conditions.
Yeah.
There is not one GP practice staff lot who could go to the doctors. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of them are very fair. The one in this building is very fair. He might be a workaholic, but he's very fair. But they will not put specific terms and conditions there like a local authority will. So now they're watching all the hours roles saying, oh, I can have so much flexi time. I've got so many days off. I've got this, I've got that. And we've even got, I said to Anne yesterday, we've got a couple of young practice managers I can think of who are thinking of moving to community link work because they'll have less hassle. It's more pay than they're getting. And then somebody said, and we spoke outside the end of the PCM meeting yesterday, and somebody had the vision that all managers are on like £30–40 an hour. It isn't the case.
So if you go back to that driver diagram, do you remember I showed you 3 drivers and I said that bottom section was the really difficult
I missed
do.
the beginning. Sorry.
All right, okay. So we're working around career progression, culture and values, and then there was a box. The slides will come out to you. There's the tranche at the bottom that is all the stuff you're talking about. The really hard bit to do. What I'm hoping is that if we can get some standardisation and some recognition and almost some peer pressure going, so we will have some sites that come on board and start to make changes and sign up to working at a standard level that gives people good career progression. Hopefully we can, by doing that and pulling together and being a united voice, you can start to influence then some of those more difficult things. I also cited an example I just heard about, a practice manager who's won an award. So 12 months in, he's managed to get all his partners to put everybody on agenda for change terms and conditions. It's a first. So I just think if ever there was a time for you as a group of people, this is it. So don't waste the opportunity. You can see that as a programme, we're committed to this being led by practice managers. My task and finish group that developed all of the competencies was led by practice managers, David Flynn, and then Hannah Kenyon has stepped in. They're people like Amanda that are working as practice managers. You've not got a group of corporate bods like me trying to design this for you. This is your chance. So please.
Oh, yeah, and in Wigan, I agree. Amanda's had a really good idea with the practice manager setup that she's put in place. Anne's introduced like an occupational health service, reintroduced it back for us. We haven't had it for years. So at least staff, if they're under stress, they can go and speak to somebody. But we didn't have that for a long while. The GPs have the occupational health support as well, so that's good.
My biggest dilemma here is that I've been given resource by GM. I have capacity to do it. I've got workforce leads that are really supportive. Maria and Anne have helped loads. But we can't do it alone. If we do, we're going to come up with something that isn't going to work and it's not going to be fit for purpose. We may as well not bother. This is such an opportunity for you as a group of people. I know you're really pressured, but it's really important for your future. Can't do it without you. And I hope you can get from the call. I really, really am passionate about making this as good as possible. So, you need to come on board and help, because it can only be good if we have the right people inputting, and the people who matter are you guys on this call. It's for you. So come on, get emailing Liz Wise, folks.
Draw it to a close.
You can on that positive note.
Absolutely, and on a positive. We're not going to crack this nut overnight. It's massive, and but I think let's get it to GP board. I think we should be going to the Greater Manchester LMCs. We need to speak to as many people as possible in the system, and just start to keep chipping away, breaking it down. But the more work we do in these groups, the stronger position we've got to say this is all the evidence that we've gathered. And unless you guys, as you employers, and I absolutely take on board Michelle what you're saying, really difficult to influence as an individual, but we've got to start putting that we've got to start putting that peer pressure into the system and demonstrating that it's that this has to be this has to be a chosen career pathway. And if the employer doesn't step up to the plate, then you guys are you guys are going to move on, and then nobody's irreplaceable, but it's a very unique job. And so we're really trying to kind of get it on the map. So we've really run over time, and I think we could have had this
Really
this
sorry.
debate for a lot longer. That's absolutely fine. It's really important that we discuss this and we get your views. So obviously we will without doubt be inviting Sati back to kind of give us updates, and you know, maybe when you've been to GP board, Sati, and you know, see what response you get from them.
Yeah,
So
that'd be fine.
thanks very much, team. I don't know if you're staying on. Obviously, you're welcome to listen to the rest of the meeting.
Brilliant, that's
so
okay. I've got another meeting that was at 2
absolutely. So
o'clock.
thank you to Sati, Anne, and Amanda. And I'm going to hand over to Kerry now, who's going to talk to us about she's going to give us an update on the Lantern contract, and she's also going to update us on the GM Workforce Bank launch. So hopefully this is some good news and something that will help you all and alleviate some of the pressures that you're experiencing. So go for it, Kerry.
Thanks, Anne. So I'm not here on my own. I'm here with Jenny and I think her team.
Okay. Hi, Jenny.
I don't know, just Jenny and Christy just want to do a quick introduction.
Christy, brilliant. Should we do some quick introductions?
Yeah, so my name's Kerry Porter, Primary Care Workforce Programme Manager at Greater Manchester.
I'm Jenny Thomas. I'm the Head of Business Management at Bolton GP Federation.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi.
Christy.
Yeah, Christy Barlow. I'm Head of Ops for Bolton GP Fed, but been supporting with the Workforce Bank on behalf of the GM Feds.
Oh, great to have you here.
So I'm just going to start us off. I'm just going to share a couple of slides. So as you know, Greater Manchester commissioned Lantern back in April 20 at the start of COVID. And the reason for that was that we really wanted to make sure, or we anticipated that there was going to be a huge pressure placed on general practice. And we wanted to ensure that there was a bank of staff that practices could reach into. We started the contract in April over a period of time leading up to December 20 and the vaccination programme. We developed a number of banks, so GPs, nurses, admin, and a vaccination bank. It still remained the massive demand was around GP resources compared to the nurse and the admin reach. And actually what I wanted to share with you was a little bit of activity in terms of what the data looked like. So in terms of the GP bank, the slide in the top right hand corner, we looks like we had a really healthy bank. We had like 600 GPs there, but in reality, there was only a very small proportion of them that were regularly picking up shifts. It was about 120 of those GPs that we had available to us. And in terms of practices that were posting shifts, you can see from when the contract started in April, this is the slide at the bottom here in the left hand corner, in comparison to the last 6 months and in June this year, the number of shifts that were posted has declined. For those of you that were on this call a couple of months ago where we were reaching out to you to understand what that meant, you told us that actually the stress involved in posting the shifts and waiting it to be filled was just too much, and that therefore you didn't feel, in terms of business as usual, that Lantern was helping. We did put in a recovery plan with Lantern, looking at how we could both grow the bank so that there was that really healthy supply, and how we could really help in terms of posting shifts and getting them filled and what that meant. Interestingly enough, there remained this table at the bottom right hand corner, remained a number of shifts that were posted that never got any activity, so never got any fill rates. And that's something in GM that we really took very seriously. What we did learn, there you go. What we did learn was that there was some benefits to be had, and what worked really well in terms of the Lantern contract was where the contract was offered to vaccination banks. So that was where there was a common denominator, somebody that rostered staff in. That worked really, really well. But actually, in terms of the recovery plan that we put in place with Lantern, it was quite disappointing in terms of their response. So all of this data was taken internally within Greater Manchester. The contract was due for renewal at the end of August. And in terms of, upon reflection, value for money, usage, the feedback that you gave to us, the contract ended with Lantern. That's not to say that if you've had a great experience with them, that you can't continue to contract with them. It's just that GM will not fund that anymore. What we have looked to do is work with our partners across Greater Manchester, looking at what's gone really well and who's got systems in place to develop a GM offer. And on that basis, I'm going to hand over to Jenny and Krista. Do you want me to carry on sharing my slides, Jenny? Or
Yes, please, if you don't mind.
no problem.
Okay. So during August, the likes of all of us were extending our EPC and moving over to the new contract. We'd actually developed our own rota system to enable us to deliver EPC because we've got quite a successful bank in Bolton. So when we had a conversation with Kerry, we decided to look at utilising that system and developing it to work across Greater Manchester. Next slide, please, Kerry. So the system's not dissimilar to Lantern. It works very similar to Lantern. However, what we have done is we've linked it in with the GM passport. So any GPs, so we're only looking at GPs currently, any GPs who want to register on the Workforce Bank, firstly go onto a GM passport, upload all the documentation on there. We check the documentation, we sign them off. They then register on the Workforce Bank. We've been live about a week and we've got 50 practices signed up. We've got 18 GPs signed off and 108 who are still uploading documentation onto the Workforce Bank. So we're hoping to get the sessions filled really quickly. We've got a dedicated administrator who will look at the unfilled sessions and then try to actively fill them. So it's not just sat in a system, they will actively try to fill them. There's no cost to you and you are in control of your terms and conditions. But what I can advise is if you're posting your sessions to lower price, it's going to be almost impossible to fill them. So think about what hourly rate you're putting on there. And I can advise on that if you want, but I can tell you we've had somebody that's posted at £70 an hour and we're going to find it virtually impossible to fill a session at £70 an hour. For the staff, they've all told us that it's easy to use. Once they've uploaded their stuff onto the passport, the actual Workforce Bank itself dead easy. They can see a calendar for the whole month where the sessions are posted, apply for them. You'll then receive an email, the GP will receive an email and it puts you in touch with each other. Any questions so far? So I can't give it, I've just seen it asking about an annual rate. What I can tell you is the usual rate and the rate that works for us, we have no problems in Bolton filling our sessions, is we pay £90 an hour and £100 an hour for evenings and weekends.
I think it's probably about what you've included in that as well. I suppose it depends on is it just face to face with patients, or are the GPs expected to do some admin time within that? Are they expected to do some home visits? So I think the range, it's difficult to pinpoint an actual hourly rate.
Yeah. Sorry, Michelle, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, so when we talk about rate, when we go out to the locum market, we give locums the option of inclusive or exclusive of NHS pension, because a lot of them in the pension. So will the system have the ability to do that?
Not currently. It literally allows you to post an hourly rate, and it does say that the conversation will be between yourself and the GP about the terms and conditions. But like I said, this is early days in the system and we're looking to build things in, and we can add that in.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question was around, where you've got to upload the documentation to the GM passport. From a governance point of view, I take it that ticks everything that we normally would ask a locum for, from responsible officer, safeguarding, everything, appraisals, revalidation, because that's everything that we would ask from a locum. Same principle.
So we've worked off what we would ask, which I'd like to think is the same as yours. I don't have the finer detail here. What I can say is, when you sign up to the Workforce Bank, it does ask you to sign a disclaimer to say that you will also check, because it's your CQC, it's an expectation for your CQC that you have check anybody that's going to work on there. So you will have access to the passport to be able to check the documentation as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
We can share with these slides what's included on the passport if that's helpful.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know whether there was a, yeah, there you go.
There's a little bit on there, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's not all on.
Sorry.
That's okay. Christy, do you want to talk a little bit more about the actual registration process?
Yeah, will you just go back a slide for me, please, Kerry?
Yeah, there you
Thank
go,
you.
sorry.
So really simple to register as an organisation. You simply go on the link that's on the slides, like I say, we'll share that after, and just click on register as an organisation. It'll ask a few questions, it'll pop up a disclaimer that you need to just read and tick. Really simple. Next slide, please, Kerry. Feel like you're my PA today, Kerry. So registering for staff, there's actually 3 steps for a GP registering. So that's to register on the primary care website first of all, then to go into the GP Workforce Bank to upload the passport, and that is where the GP will be asked to upload the HR documentation. There is a point at which we will then review that and approve it. So we've got a second check, and then the organisation will have the last check at the end to make sure that they're happy with what the GP locums put on there. Then they're just the GP, once they've uploaded the passport, can go on and pick their shifts. It's really straightforward. It would have been quite handy to have a little screen, wouldn't it, of what it looks like, but it's literally just a calendar, very easy to use, and you just click on the add button. Got a couple of questions there. Sorry, I can't see your name. Margaret.
I'll jump in. We've got myself and Margaret, so I'm Amanda. It's a quick question about the email that came out. It had the links within it, so it was telling us how to register to add the sessions and telling us indeed if we wanted our members of staff to add themselves as bank staff. But it mentioned the Q&A and FAQs as an attachment, but there wasn't an attachment.
Oh dear, right.
And I think that'll be really helpful because it'll probably help us better understand what's already been asked. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll send that with the slides if that's all right.
Great.
Sorry,
thanks.
I didn't realise it hadn't been attached.
Yeah, and I think that I assume that went across GM. It only came, I think, yesterday about 3 o'clock, but there was no attachment. Thank you.
No problem. Margaret, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll just a couple of questions. I think one's been answered actually. It says in your slides that you're thinking of introducing other disciplines in due course, because there's a real shortage across the board of practice nurses at times, either due to them being off poorly, whatever reason. But some of the practices locally have struggled recently, and it would be good to see nurses on a bank like this. And my other question is how can you handle acute requests rather than pre-book for holiday periods and stuff like that? Can you handle acute, say GP doesn't turn in or a locum doesn't turn in on Monday morning? Would you be able to put somebody in for Monday afternoon if the rates were agreed?
I think I'm not saying that it can't be done like that, Margaret, because we're gonna hopefully the bank will just increase over the next few weeks. I think maybe the process might have to be slightly different. So whereby you just posting a session, maybe it would be directly contacting the Workforce Bank to say I've got an urgent request, and that'll mean that our admin can then do a bit of chasing and contact the GPs directly. Maybe that's something we can look at. In fact, if you move to the next slide, Kerry, because this is the main slide, so I can gather everybody's thoughts on how they think the system will best work and what you'd like to see included. So, Margaret, I've took a note of that. Thank you.
I mean, it might be as easy as if you had a live system, Christy. So I don't know if a PM goes on or a GP themselves goes on the system and they can see who's available for them dates, something like that, like some of the local agencies work on. I don't know, but it sounds very good. I've not heard a great deal. It's gone out to the PMs, I think, more than PCM managers. I've heard some of it, but it sounds very good if it can get off the ground.
Yeah, Thank you.
We will be continuing to grow this. We're pushing out at the moment to get these GPs, particularly these 108 that are sat there in the workforce, to fill the passport in. The sheer fact that they've registered straight away for the passport makes me think that they want to work on the workforce bank. So we'll go as fast as we can. At the moment, because we've only got 18 registered, we can contact the 18 if there's a short notice one. Manually, we can send them an email saying, are you free to work this day? But it will be a case of growing it as fast as we can.
Yeah, smashing. Thank you.
And we're hoping to move on to including an app at some point, which will mean that our GPs can put shifts on the go.
Yeah.
So that will be helpful as well.
And they'll get alerts to shifts that have just been posted. So once we do look at developing the app, it'll alert them on their phones that a session's been posted. Somebody's just put a question in about who do we contact if issues with the website for Workforce Bank. There is an email address to contact. We aim to answer within 24 hours. We have tested it. We have done a pilot with it, and we've ironed out any issues we've found so far. But do let us know if you're having any problems at all, and that'll come out in the slides.
Michelle, final comment from you?
I think it's probably very good timing now, because we're about to hit winter access plans. So the money will start drip feeding through. A bit late for us, November, but it will start coming through. So all GM will be going out to the same locum pool, so to speak, like we had to last year. But sadly, that's where it became a locum market, because everybody, you know, if you think about over 90 practices going out for the same locums. So yeah, I think if it gets up and running as quickly as possible, it'll be a massive help to practices.
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Catherine, I'm not dismissing you. I think your hand went up before I said final word from Michelle.
Yeah, it was literally just a quick thing. I don't know if we were doing something different, but when we were posting our shifts, we almost deleted somebody else's post.
It's been resolved.
Right, okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Know about it. It's been very quickly resolved.
Yeah,
Right.
it highlighted to us, and we've written something in to stop that happening. Just one last thing. We're looking to set up a task and finish group that will invite everybody to come and give us some ideas, because one of the things that keeps being raised over and over again is scheduling, because at the moment you have to post your sessions individually, and I know people are keen to see scheduling involved. So we'll get some dates out to you for those.
That's great. Thanks. Obviously, you know, it's needed, isn't it? And the timing is the timing's great. So, and any questions for you know, any further observations or questions for the team, please don't hesitate to get back to them, because the more they learn from you, the more they can improve the services as they're going along. But great presentation, and really you know, really great service. Well done. So
thank you
again, you're very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but I'm sure you've got you've got more pressures back at the Fed trying to get this up and running. Perfect.
Thanks very much, Anne.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks for your time. Thanks for your time.
Bye.
Perfect. Okay, that really you know, really worthwhile service there, and people, you know, people need to kind of get behind it and start using it and promoting it. I'm going to hand over very briefly to Lorna in our team, who's just going to give you a quick update of the current offers that we've got available to you through the GP Excellence programme. So thanks, Lorna. Mute.
I do that all the time, and you feel so embarrassed when you do it, don't you? I just feel a divvy when I speak.
So she's gone off the call completely. Oh no.
Might have pressed
Together now.
On the headset, the button to unmute on mine is next to the put the phone down one. So I'm guessing she's just
Oh,
not
crikey. She dialed herself out.
She's
back. There we go.
She's back. She's back.
Hi, Lorna.
Have I missed my spot?
I'm
Sorry about that. I'm trying out a new headset and trying to be technical using a button and cut myself off rather than coming off mute.
We just said that.
So I'm sorry about that, and I know I've wasted probably 90 seconds of the 2
Don't
minutes that
worry.
I had now. So I'll be quick. So great offers at the moment that are going to be coming out shortly from GP Excellence. We have 3 certificates that we're going to be working with collaboration with the PMA. They are Excellence in Primary Care Finance, Excellence in Primary Care HR, and Excellence in Primary Care Management. We haven't rolled out the expressions of interest for them yet because we're just waiting for them to finish the course content on the Excellence in Primary Care Management. But if you think that you would like something more specific around either finance or HR, and you think that maybe that would be for you rather than a general primary care management overview or certificate in that, then please get in touch with us because those are ready to roll out now. But we will be sharing information about all 3 shortly as soon as we have the final date for rollout for the primary care management certificate. All of these certificates are done via e-learning and can be done, at your own leisure. So you enroll on the certificate and then you work through it at your own pace. And it's the comprehensive modules, and you end up with some real in-depth knowledge in each of these areas. And you have a certificate to show that you can use in your appraisal for your own CPD. So that's one of the first offers. Secondly, again with the PMA, we are rolling out a webinar. We're aiming this one at PCM managers and clinical directors. But if you're a practice manager and you think, actually, that I would really like to do that, then again, we're not excluding people. And we'll be taking expressions of interest for a webinar on chairing meetings and taking board level minutes. So, it's something that we've all been doing for a long time, but we sit in plenty of meetings where, there's not effective timekeeping, or there's issues around, keeping letting everybody have their turn to speak and things. So we thought that actually would be quite a practical webinar for people to learn the skills that are necessary to chair those effective meetings, and also take minutes that would be suitable for board level, thinking about who is shared and who gets copies of those. So if you think that that's a skill that you would like to enhance, then please bear that one in mind. The next offer that we've got, you may have already seen this one rolled out, is a new to partnership offer. That one, we know that there may be other things on the patch suitable for GPs or for other partners, but this one is for not just GPs, but anyone who is thinking about becoming a partner in a practice, has been offered a partnership, or has maybe been a partner for the last 2, maximum 3 years, but still thinks they're getting to grips with the non-clinical side of that. Probably not suitable for managing partners because you probably already know most of the stuff, but we know that when clinical partners come into this role, actually, there's a big knowledge gap in what they have to do to now successfully manage and run that business. So if you think somebody in your practice might be suitable for that, or you're considering taking on a new partner, or you're trying to encourage a salaried GP to take a partnership, maybe direct them to this one, and that might be a good offer for them. We are rolling out in late January, early February, another round of the CQC updates. That will be running the same way that the Maintain Your Ratings sessions were run earlier this year. The RCGP team will be doing that again for us. And this one will be focused on some specific areas that we are aware practices that have been inspected in the GM patch, may want to consider, looking at, because we know that inspectors are looking at these particular areas. So it'll be quite a focus session on which areas, we are aware that are hot topics for them at the moment. So we'll circulate those, and there'll be webinars available for yourselves to join on at the end of end of January, early Feb. Lastly, from us, I don't know if you can, if you want to put the poll on, Rose. We are thinking about running a practice manager conference in early March. So first of all, what we want to know is, would you want to come? Is this something that you would feel is worthwhile investing in to take a full day out of practice? And
So we've got 2 questions for you. So the first thing is, would you be interested in attending an in-person event? Have a think about it. The reason we've picked early March is we thought we'll get half term and everything out the way. Early March, you know, we are thinking about year end, but actually having a day out of practice, not in those final 2 weeks, but in that last month might be a nice thing. And the plan, if you want to go for this, is that we would be putting all these we'd be putting on topics that are relevant to practice managers. So, you know, speakers that you would want to see, topics that you want to discuss, issues that are really important to you. So, you know, we don't take lightly asking you to come out of practice for a day. But before we begin to start arranging this, I think the important question is, would you want to come at all? So I can't see if people are answering that poll, Rose, but
they are, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, 57% say yes. We've got a 36% maybe. Yeah, obviously we can be flexible on the dates to, you know, so they're beneficial for everybody. But we're kind of looking at early March at the moment, as Lorna's said. So we can have a look at those results after this in more detail. But we also wanted to know if you would be interested in coming to the conference or the event to see what kind of topics you'd like to see throughout the day and types of keynote speakers and that sort of thing. So I'll just launch that now.
Yeah, so if you can have a think about the type of topics that you would want to see, if there's any one particular that you've seen and that you would like to hear more from. We don't want to presume that we think you know what you want. So, you know, some thoughts to consider might be, you know, do you want someone from the CQC there? Would you like someone from the pensions agency there? Would you like PCSE to attend? Or actually, do you want to have more focus on your own health and well-being and do some work around leadership? So, you know, what kind of things would you like? And then the idea is, if we're building this bespoke conference, you know, we build it for you.
Right. Thank you, everybody. Fab.
Okay, that's great. If you think of anything else, you know, please just do email us over. And then finally, just before I hand over to Lynn, whilst we have all these offers that are going to be coming out and that you can apply through expression of interest, please don't forget that we're here all the time. And if, you know, you have something that you're just not sure where to go, or if there's going to be some support available, it might be an issue that's quite an individual issue to support you or someone else within the practice. It might be something around your team. It might be something around your PCN. If there's something at all that you think, you know, actually, could we have some help with this? We have a really simple referral form. It'll take you 5 minutes, or just reach out to us via email and, you know, see if there's anything we can support you with. Just remember that we're there and we're here for you. And that is it from me.
Oh, you're on mute, Anne.
On mute. So, thanks, Lorna. So some really great offers coming up there, and you know, having heard what we've heard from Sati, you know, hopefully, you know, will be of benefit to anybody working in the system. But just reiterating what Lorna said, you know, it's not just about the offers that we put out on a regular basis. It's about, you know, the team being there, and just, you know, just pick up the phone if you think you know we can help you in any way. So thanks to Lorna, and I'm going to hand over to Lynn, who's going to give us a really nice session on return to work interviews.
You haven't heard it yet, Anne, so you might.
Oh, I love it. We'll all love it.
Okay, thanks ever so much. And I think Rose has got some slides there for me that she's going to share. Just to build on that last item there, as you may know, hopefully you know that I am a free resource to all of you from an HR, learning and development, organisational development perspective. And I know that since I've been attending these meetings, quite a few of you have been in touch, and I've been trying to support. So please don't hesitate to get in touch if there's anything else that I can help on. So I'm going to go very, very quickly through the return to work interview, meeting, whatever you want to call it. I've put a few slides together, and it will be a quick gallop. So just to say again at the end, if there's anything you'd like in more detail or to discuss specifics, then please come back to me. So we're going to move on quickly. Thank you, Rose. One of the things that I think it's quite important to have a look at, the NHS England did quite a lot of work after as we were coming out of COVID, kind of looking at what the key drivers for high attendance were, and these were some of them. So just very quickly, just thinking about things that you as practice managers can affect or not, things that might be out of your control. So good psychological support provision, so that's a physical well-being offer as well as other bits and pieces. We're finding now that people who have employee assistance programs, which particularly talk about support for finance, given the circumstances that we're in, they work really well in supporting people from not going off sick. HR ratio, well, we know you can't employ your own HR teams, but that's just a point. Outsourced occupational health, again, the reason behind this is that outsourced occupational health tends to be quicker to react, and therefore you get the person in or back to work, or you stop them going off to work more quickly. Where people have absence management systems, and these are sort of automated systems. When people go off sick, they go online to log in why they're off sick, etc. People who don't use them quite as much have a better rate of attendance management. And then the two things that really are within your control, one is organisations that score more highly on staff engagement and team working. If you do surveys, and again, that's another service that we're starting to offer to people. If you want a bit of work done on staff engagement, please come back. And then this last thing, the less complex your policy is, the less likely it is that people go off sick. And it's about knowing exactly what happens, when the stages, what the triggers are, and also having an informal audit and reviewing that policy regularly to see whether it really is still working. And the reason I put that one last there is because if we go on to the next slide, the return to work interview is very often seen as a critical thing within managing the policy, but it's there for more than just policy management. The real purpose of a good return to work interview is firstly supporting that individual, having a discussion with them, understanding what's going on, but also from that supporting your workforce in general. So if it's a troublesome set of sickness absence, then you'll find that the rest of the team are taking the workload on. So you've got to do some sort of intervention around that to support the team. But also you might get things from a good return to work interview that are helpful to know to support others in your workforce. Monitoring sickness absence trends, you will see, come winter, we'll see higher rates of people off with flu-like symptoms. But what are the things really coming through? When we've looked right across the piece at primary care and secondary care in the NHS, whereas it was always musculoskeletal problems that were the highest number of reasons for people going off sick, over the last few years, the one thing that's really crept to the fore has been psychological, anxiety, stress, etc. So all of that is important to help your organisation learn, and how you feed that back to the partners and to the other managers in your team. So that's the purpose of the interview. If we just go very quickly on to the approach that you're taking. And this isn't about grandmother and egg sucking. It's really about trying to help you amongst all the other things that you've got to do. You have got to manage all of these things. You're either doing them yourself or you're managing other people who are doing them. So obviously it's got to be in line with whatever you're saying within your sickness absence policy, which is why you need to make sure that that is reviewed regularly, so it's capturing the key things that are important for staff. Using a format that captures appropriate data. Now, there are all sorts of examples of forms that you fill in. Most of them are very data driven. You know, are you feeling better? Tick. How long have you been off? X number of days. How many days have you been off this year? How does that fit with the policy, etc. But it's also about monitoring trends with that individual's health. So that's the approach. However, on the next slide, there are two ways that you can undertake that interview. So there's the glad to see you back interview, which is the supportive, understanding. Doesn't mean to say you're not ignoring the data or the policy or whatever it might be, but it's the approach that's taken, or the where the hell have you been type sickness return to work interview. And that can be particularly the approach that you might take when you've got an individual who's had lots of recurring sickness absence, or who hasn't been following the policy, gets somebody to ring in and say they're sick on their behalf, or sends a text message to somebody who isn't necessarily going to be in work that day, and you don't get the information that you need. So they're the two approaches that we tend to talk about. But on the next slide, the thing is to get the approach right from the very start. And one of the things that your typical pro forma for completing does is it can, if it's not managed carefully, it can take on that and where the hell have you been kind of approach to sickness absence management. But as I've just said, it's also dependent on the contact that you've had with that individual during their period of absence, and particularly in longer term absence, it's making sure that you are having that regular contact with the individual, so when you get them back to work, you can take the right approach. So one of the things that I'm offering today, if you want to just move on there, Rose, and this is something we can spend a bit of time looking at. We've got quite a few tools now under the heading of the Health and Wellbeing Primary Care Programme. We've got a different version of this, which is just kind of enabling people to keep a diary of what's going on for them. But what I've done is I've taken a few of the questions from that, because I think those questions are particularly relevant when it comes to a return to work interview. And this, in effect, you can ask somebody on their return to work to complete this, and then have a discussion about it when you do the return to work interview. What it also helps the individual do is to monitor things that are going on for them. And again, hopefully, remember, the return to work interview is about understanding what's been wrong, what support they need, but also about hopefully stopping them from going off sick again, if you can identify what the real triggers are. So the questions that are in this barometer, if you can just move forward, Rose, are things around, is there anything about your current working situation which has caused this sickness absence? Is there an underlying reason? And what are the things that you would typically do to help you stay mentally healthy at work? Because we all know that if you're feeling okay about yourself and you wake up in the morning and you've got a bit of a stomach ache or a bad back, you kind of think, yeah, okay, I'll be all right once I get into work. So you get up and you go into work, and usually you are, unless you've got, unfortunately, something else going on physically. But if you're not feeling mentally very good and you wake up and you think, oh, got a bit of a cold, I've got a queue for the bus. When I get in there, there's all of that going on and blah-de-blah-de. No, I'm going to phone in sick today. So how you feel about your working environment can have a big impact on whether you're going to come into work or not. And this is not about people coming into work when they're really not well. It's that kind of borderline situation that might swing it one way or another. Talking about question 3 there is around what challenges have you got? Are they causing anxiety and stress? Are they work related? Are they personal issues? Because even if they're personal issues, there are some things that you can do in work to support that individual. Like, okay, so I know that you have an issue with a caring situation. So every Thursday for the next 3 or 4 weeks, why don't you start a bit earlier and leave a bit earlier so that you can go and do that? So there might just be some work related adjustments that you can make to make it a little bit easier for that person. Next question is, so what can your manager or colleagues do to help you with this? Do you feel able to share it with your manager? If not, is there somebody else that you maybe would like to have a discussion with? And again, I go back to people that have the employee assistance programs. As you know, there's very often somewhere there that you can refer somebody on to. Have you spoken to the people at home about this? Do they know the situation that you're in? What can they do, if anything, to make it a bit easier? And then the last question, is there anybody else that you think you really do need support from? And just write down a little message on this pro forma that this comes as part of, to remind you about how to take that forward. And at the bottom of the pro forma, there's a date. And we certainly, people who I've done some reviews with who have been using this kind of approach have said it's really, really helped, because they've been able to match the ups and downs in their own feelings with things that have been going on, and they can directly relate to a trigger, or they find things that have really helped, and therefore they can replay those again to stop them going off sick in the first place, or to bring them back to work a little bit quicker. So that's the kind of support that we're suggesting you tie in with your return to work interview format. Just on the next one though, there are times, and we've all been there, where we know there is a real issue now with someone being off sick. There are cycles, there are very obvious, it's every 4th Friday afternoon. They might be on the informal part of your sickness absence policy, and you're then going to have to formalise the process. And it's having the right tools in your tool bag to address that issue without it turning into a very difficult meeting. And again, there's some things that we can offer to support you on having those really difficult conversations, but enabling you to keep in control so that you get as much as you need from it. And the other thing is, what support do you have and need? So unfortunately, as we all know, there can be some really, really difficult staffing situations. So are you getting the support from your manager to address this? Or are you getting the support from the individual's line manager that you need to address this? So it's just making sure that particularly on the confronting side of things, that you know who's got your back and what else you might need. So that finally, we've talked there very quickly about a couple of different approaches that you can take. So if you can just move on to the last slide, Rose. Whatever the approach that you take, whichever the right approach is that you've decided to take, it can still be stressful, a stressful part of your job. It takes up time. Individuals can have some very upsetting health issues. personal issues, family issues that you become presented with in your attempt to secure them back at work, welcome them back to work, enable them to stay in work rather than going off sick in the future. And I think the thing is to recognise that you need time to reflect and to learn, but not just about what the individual has said, but also about you. So, you know, kind of thinking about what would I do differently next time? That thing that I did really worked. I'm really pleased with that. But I might want to do something different next time. So that you're getting the maximum learning. The more learning you get, the more confident you are going into these kind of situations. But the other thing as well is how will you share your learning with managers? So sometimes in a return to work interview, particularly if you're taking that glad to see you back approach and they have used something like the barometer, you might find out about things that you weren't aware of in the team or in the environment that they're working with, that no one's brought to your attention. And there might be things here, there might be trends, etc., that you need to feed back to your line managers because, all right, it's only impacting one person at the moment or maybe two, but there could be real things there that you can do something about, quick and dirty, if you like, to reduce people from going off sick next time. So just to summarise, the return to work interview can be very difficult, particularly whether if you are looking at issues around attendance or unfortunate things happening with people's health or people's family. They can be very difficult, but there is a lot of learning that you can get from it. And it isn't just this kind of tick box, yes, you've done the number of days, or I've told you about X, Y, and Z. If you want to really use the return to work interview for what it could be, not just for you, for the individual, but for the organisation, it's worth taking a little bit more time in the planning, delivering, and then reviewing of it. So that, in a nutshell, hopefully I've not overrun too much, is a little bit of information about the return to work interview. And as I've said right at the beginning, if there's anything else that you want support with, then please just come back to me, and I'll make sure that I'm out there to support in whatever way. And I don't know whether there's any questions or comments just as we're finishing off, Anne.
Thanks, Lynn. I've not got any hands up. We are running out of time, but that was really. Oh, we've got something from Michelle. That was really helpful, and I think it's probably something that everybody on the call is resonating with at the moment and thinking, yes, I had to do that not long ago, and it was particularly difficult. So thank you for that insight, Lynn. Michelle.
Sorry, Anne, I know we're overrunning. So, Lynn, thank you very much for that, because I do agree with Anne. The return to work interviews are really hard, even if you think you're a very fair manager, because you've got different situations coming through your door. You know, you've got your freak, what I call the Friday, Monday people, you've got the genuine people, you've got people with low coping mechanisms, you've got a whole host of things. And at the end of the day, we are, I'm going to say, generalist managers without talking our role down. We're not HR experts. It's really hard to keep on top of that, especially when the rest of the team are struggling and you know you've got staff that habitual absences, shall we say. So I think sort of maybe training around that would really help PMs. I know I'm on the, you know, the group that you run with Dominic, but it is definitely needed out there, because, you know, we're human as well.
Absolutely.
And it's hard that coming through the door all the time. And I'm the most empathetic person in the world, or sympathetic. But when you're under that level of stress yourself, given the volume of what's going on, being able to address that in a way that is constructive but also needs to take it down the path that it needs to when needed, if I'm making sense. It is something that needs to be done. So yeah, I would be a fan of some training, and I think I'm experienced enough, but you can never have enough of support.
No, sorry, can I just very quickly, thanks for that, Michelle. As you know, you're part of a pilot that we're doing, which has been a two-part programme. We've got the second part. I am going to be evaluating that because the programme is called Supporting People to Manage Attendance. So it's broader than the return to work interview, but there are the return to work interview is still a key part of all of that. And I think what we will do, that we thought to break it into two parts was the best way to do it. I will take advice from that group about how to take that forward, how to take that training forward. Is there anything we want to add, anything that we would change? And is there a different way of doing that, Michelle? So please make sure you get involved in that. And then hopefully in the new year, we will start to roll whatever the revised version of that is out to practice managers, and you can engage as and when you want. But in the short term, as I keep saying, please just get in touch if there's anything that I can do. Whereas I've been a general manager, I am an HR professional, so try to combine the two.
But please make use of Lynn's time. She's, as she says, she's there as a really valuable resource to all of you. So don't hesitate. We have slightly run over time.
And I'm free.
She's cheap. She's cheap as chips.
Hey, bloody cheap.
Lynn, where are you based, Lynn? Could I just ask that?
I'm at home.
No, I mean, but where when you say you're a general manager, where do you work?
Oh no, I'm not a general manager. I'm contracted to the Primary Care Board as their lead for HR and workforce. But I've been a general manager and an HR director in the past. I'm just very old now, so I don't work as much as I used to.
You're over. You're over. No, as you say, your free experience is very good, isn't it? Very good to offer there.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So thank you all for your time. We fully appreciate that time is precious. So it's great to see so many of you on the call. Kerry, I don't think that we've put anything in for December, and we're considering looking towards January now. So we'll get the next date out to you to you know, for the next forum, which will be taking place in January. But if there are any particular topics that you'd like us to cover, please don't hesitate to let the team know. You know, these meetings are yours, and we want to make the best use of your time. So please let us know if there's anything that you would like us to cover in the future. So thanks very much for your time. Feels very, very early to be wishing people happy Christmas, but seeing as we're not having a meeting in December, really do hope that you all have an excellent festive break, and we'll resume in January. Thanks for your time, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.